June 22, 1941. The night withdraws slowly from the plains of Eastern Europe, along a border that stretches more than 1,800 miles, from the Baltic forests to the marshes of the Pripyat, down toward the Black Sea. Men stand waiting. German infantry crouch beside armored vehicles. Panzer engines vibrate softly beneath steel hulls. Pilots sit in cockpits with maps folded on their knees. Artillery crews grip lanyards with gloved hands. The silence is unnatural, too wide, too heavy. At precisely 3:15 a.m. The stillness ends. German guns open fire in unison. Shells arc eastward, tearing into Soviet border posts. Airfields, rail junctions, the ground shudders. The sky fills with sound. In minutes, the largest land invasion in human history is underway. In Berlin, Adolf Hitler believes this war will be short. He believes the Soviet state will fracture under pressure. That ideology will dissolve into panic. He believes history has chosen him. In Moscow, Joseph Stalin has not yet grasped the scale of what has begun. The reports arriving by telephone sound exaggerated, almost unbelievable. An attack of this magnitude feels impossible, even now. Two men, both absolute rulers, two systems built on fear and obedience, now locked in a struggle that will consume entire nations. And once unleashed, neither will be able to control what follows. Context, background, part 1. Two revolutions. Two dictators. The rivalry between Adolf Hitler and Joseph. Stalin did not begin on the battlefield. It began decades earlier, in the aftermath of collapse. In 1917, Russia imploded. War, hunger, and political paralysis shattered the Tsarist Empire. From the wreckage emerged the Bolsheviks, committed to Marxist revolution, class warfare, and the destruction of old hierarchies. By the early 1920s, the Soviet Union existed not merely as a state, but as an ideological project, claiming to represent the future of humanity. Joseph Stalin did not seize power through charisma or battlefield glory. He advanced through administration, patience, and elimination. By the late 1920s, he controlled the Communist Party, the security apparatus, and the levers of fear. Industrialization was forced at catastrophic cost. Agriculture was collectivized through violence and starvation. Millions died, but the state grew stronger, more centralized, more brutal. In Germany, defeat in World War I produced a different kind of collapse. The empire fell, the economy broke, inflation erased savings, democracy arrived fragile and resented. For many Germans, the future felt stolen. Adolf Hitler rose not through institutions, but through spectacle and grievance. He offered simple explanations for complex suffering. Enemies were named. Solutions were promised. By 1933, Hitler held power legally, then destroyed the system that had elevated him. Both demanded loyalty above competence. Both saw ideology not as theory, but as destiny. Yet their worldviews were fundamentally incompatible. Hitler saw Bolshevism as a Jewish conspiracy, an existential threat to German civilization. Stalin saw fascism as a temporary disease of capitalism, dangerous, but ultimately defeatable. Each believed history would eliminate the other. For a time, however, pragmatism intervened. Part 2. The Pact and the Illusion of Control. In August 1939, the unthinkable occurred. Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, AEA, non-aggression agreement that stunned the world. Publicly, it promised peace between two ideological enemies. Privately, it divided Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. Hitler needed time. He wanted Poland destroyed without Soviet interference. Stalin wanted territory and breathing room. Both believed they were deceiving the other. The pact worked, briefly. Poland was crushed in weeks. The Red Army occupied eastern Poland, the Baltic states, and parts of Romania. Germany turned west, overrunning France in 1940 with stunning speed. Europe watched as Hitler's power appeared unstoppable. But the alliance was hollow. Hitler never abandoned his vision of eastern conquest. He believed Germany required living space in the east. Land, grain, oil, labor. The Soviet Union was not a partner. It was a prize. Stalin, meanwhile, suspected betrayal but feared provoking it. His military had been gutted by purges. Experienced officers were dead or imprisoned. Initiative had been replaced by obedience. Reports of German troop concentrations were dismissed as provocations. Each man believed he was buying time. In reality, time was running out. By the spring of 1941, Hitler had made his decision. Operation Barbarossa would destroy the Soviet Union in a single campaign. Moscow would fall before winter. The Red Army would collapse under shock. The war would be over in months. What followed proved how disastrously wrong that belief was. Angles of the conflict angle, at the human scale, the invasion unleashed a scale of suffering unmatched in history. German soldiers advanced rapidly at first, capturing hundreds of thousands of Soviet troops in massive encirclements. Prisoners were herded into open fields with no food, no shelter. Millions died of starvation, exposure, and disease. Civilians fared no better. Villages burned. Jews were executed systematically behind the front lines. Cities were starved into submission. The war in the East was not fought for territory alone. It was fought for annihilation. Soviet civilians endured devastation but also mobilized in astonishing numbers. Entire factories were dismantled and moved east beyond the Urals. Women replaced men in industry. Teenagers learned to operate lathes and rifles simultaneously. This was not simply a clash of armies. It was a war against societies. Angle 2, command and control Hitler, believed intuition mattered more than expertise. As the campaign stalled, he increasingly overruled his generals. Retreats were forbidden. Encircled units were ordered to stand fast. Flexibility vanished. Stalin, initially paralyzed by shock, gradually adapted. After early disasters, he began to listen, to some extent, to his commanders. The Red Army learned through catastrophe. Both men centralized authority. But only one system learned from failure. By 1942, the contrast became fatal. Angle 3, technology and logistics, German. Armor and aircraft were tactically superior early on. Coordination between tanks, infantry, and air power devastated Soviet formations. But Germany lacked depth. Supply lines stretched across destroyed infrastructure. Fuel ran short. Spare parts vanished. Winter clothing was insufficient. The Soviet Union absorbed losses and replaced them. T-34 tanks rolled out in vast numbers. Simpler, rugged, and well-suited to terrain, they shifted the balance. Industrial capacity, not brilliance, began to decide outcomes. Perception of the enemy. Hitler underestimated Soviet resilience. He believed the state would collapse once leadership faltered. He did not understand fear as a binding force. Stalin underestimated German speed and operational skill, but learned. Each misjudgment shaped decisions. Each misjudgment cost millions of lives, and nowhere did those miscalculations collide more brutally than at Stalingrad. The Volga ran red with fuel and blood. Winter arrived early. Soviet forces encircled the German Sixth Army in November. Hitler forbade the breakout. Air supply failed. Starvation set in. By February 1943, the remnants surrendered. It was the first complete destruction of a German field army. The myth of invincibility died in the snow. Aftermath, strategic reversal. After Stalingrad, momentum shifted permanently. The Red Army advanced westward relentlessly. Kursk shattered German armored reserves. By 1944, Soviet forces were on the borders of Eastern Europe. Hitler retreated into denial. Stalin grew confident, calculating post-war influence even before victory. The rivalry that began in ideology ended in geography. The end, in April 1945, Soviet troops entered Berlin. Hitler, isolated and defeated, took his own life. Stalin emerged as master of half of Europe. The cost was unimaginable. Over 27 million Soviet citizens dead. Germany destroyed. Entire regions erased. No rivalry had ever demanded so much blood. Reflection, closure. The conflict between Adolf Hitler and Joseph. Stalin was not simply a duel between two men. It was a collision between systems that treated human life as expendable in service of belief. Both believed history had chosen them. Both believed violence was a tool of destiny. One was destroyed by his own illusions. The other survived, hardened, ruling a scarred empire. The Eastern Front remains the darkest chapter of the Second World War, not because of a single battle, but because of what happens when absolute power meets absolute conviction. When ideology silences doubt, when fear replaces reason, when entire nations are turned into weapons. The rivalry ended in 1945. Its lessons remain unfinished.